Welcome to the virtual compound. In the last episode, we started our book club series with Iron Flame. And if you're into reading, you should go check it out. Today, we're talking about a unique aspect of military life, something that we've all had to deal with our husbands' specific careers, is operational security and how it pertains to our daily life.
Amelia, where is your pretty face?
Amelia.
I am unmuted. I'm unmuted. I don't know why I got muted, but I'm driving, so you'll look at the underside of my nose if I have my phone on.
That might be
It's okay.
entertaining. Okay, that's fine.
It is 5:21 p.m. in California.
Hello. I am in Okinawa, Japan, and it is 9:21 a.m.
Yes.
on Thursday.
On Thursday. It is currently 8:21 p.m. on Wednesday here in Maryland. Lovely spring for all of us, and it is finally time for us to all get back together. We're all doing our mom things, except me at the moment. I'm actually the only one not doing the mom thing. Lacey's doing hair. Amelia's driving children to and from activities, and I'm done with the mom things because I just got back from working at dance. So I get my downtime with the girls. Just in time for Amelia to start her day and like run around.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. Our children's social lives are keeping us running around. So for this episode, we're here, and then we're not, and then we're here, and then we're not.
Yeah.
Because I am my child's secretary and chauffeur and like general business manager, unpaid, obviously.
Every day.
Every day.
So, as Lacey mentioned, we're discussing military life. One of the unique areas of that is OPSEC, or operational security. And that kind of stretches into our home life. Like it sounds like it should just stick with the military side of things, but it ends up stretching into our home life. And we have a few different stories to tell how that can affect us at home and how it can affect our loved ones and people that we just know abroad or in the workplace.
Yeah, I think like
Meaning
the biggest part
it
for
happens
us is
during
obviously
deployments, it
you
happens
never
while they're at
think
work, it
about
happens
something
while
like
you're on
this in the civilian
vacation,
world.
all
I mean, maybe
kinds
a little bit,
of
but
times. Where would
in
you
Okinawa,
say
when it's
that
primarily
you
service members, it's also a
noticed
little bit more, not lax, but you don't think
it's
about it.
being
I
mentioned or
definitely didn't
like
think
the
about it
strongest
as a
need for
newlywed.
it?
And it's a spectrum, and it's not even like a cut and dry thing sometimes. They can come home and tell you about their day, but for me, it was really hard not to like ask deeper questions. And I always, kind of joke with him about like the more serious things, which, I didn't know anything, but it was more like, depending on what they do and, the clearances and the different levels, even on that, it's on a need to know basis. We didn't need to know, so we wouldn't know. Like interpersonal relationships, they can talk about that kind of stuff. So there is that element of it, and it applies to us, and it affects our daily lives, because then here in America, we don't know who's overhearing our conversation. Like at the playground, you can't necessarily strike up a conversation like, oh, hey, how are you? Oh, what's your husband doing? Make friends that way, because you have to be careful who's listening, especially, 10 to 20 years ago when we were entering these, our marriages and the military and just the different aspects and how it all works. So, I mean, it definitely affects us on, like, that is one element of military life that is an expectation on the military spouse.
Where would you say that you noticed it being mentioned or like the strongest need for it?
So my introduction to OPSEC was actually probably 7 years into our marriage, even though that he'd been in the intelligence field his entire career. We had moved to DC and he was working at the Pentagon, and there was an ice cream social in our neighborhood, which they had every year. And our house was set up in such a way that we were on an end unit. It was right there where they set up. So we were just kind of hanging out all the time and, I guess, visible. And
the kids were playing and we were standing around, and Jeremy and I were separated. He was at the front talking to some friends and I was in the back playing with the kids. And this man who was standing there with a young boy starts a conversation. I don't remember how it began, but it was just parenting stuff. And it was his girlfriend's son that he was there with. And his girlfriend had come over for this with her son, who was like 5 years older than my oldest child. But he had special needs. And so, yeah, hi. So he was, nonverbal, and we just chatted. And this adult man, he he was, just standing there kind of engaging in conversation. And I was like, oh yeah, what do you do? And he said, oh, I can't really talk about it, or something, something to that effect.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I get that. We're right outside of DC. I'm like, oh yeah, I get that. My husband, he kind of has a job like that too, or something. And it was very like nonchalant. But when I was recounting the story to my husband after the ice cream social, he said, was it that that Chinese man that you were talking to back there? And I was like, oh yeah. And he's like, so I'm not mad, but and then he explained how Chinese spies are a real thing,
Right.
especially in the DC area. And it may be nothing, but I just have to be mindful, because he was on the watch floor, and and so he has his job, and I have no idea. I've only ever lived around other military personnel, and I don't really strike up conversations with strangers. Fast forward a week or two, we were outside playing again, and this man appears with the boy and a remote control car. Mind you, we lived in this community for 18 months. And we were always outside, and we had never seen them before. After this, they like got closer and approached us. And he didn't live, like, he had other places he could have gone with this, like not near our house,
right,
but came over by our house and did this. And so we just kind of like gravitated more in front of our house. And then there was another time, same thing kind of happened. And once he realized that we were kind of staying away from him, he stopped. But yeah, that was my big introduction to OPSEC. And then, of course, after that, we moved to Japan, and they had the wonderful, phenomenally created AFN commercials that have been on for 20 years. And they just have such a special place in my heart. Like, if we could ever get the Please Don't Go, ID card singing, I would die. I love it. If we can do that on video sometime, it's just my favorite.
Yeah, I'm sure we can find it somewhere. It'll be amazing.
But yeah, so that's my.
I feel like even in a non like OPSEC situation, that would freak me out with this person who's like there and then like creeping over on like other days, and you're like, it doesn't really matter your nationality. You're a creeper, dude. Go away.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Regardless.
Yep. Yeah. So, was probably a spy, and that's fine.
I mean,
because they know who you are before they approach you.
Yes. And they're trained in how to get stuff out of you. That's kind of the point.
Exactly. They're smart. They know what they're doing. Yeah. So anyway, okay. Moving on.
My husband's motto is like, I'm in the military, you're not, which is very, very, very true. But he also, it's a good and a bad thing, because sometimes I'm like super in the dark about stuff.
Right.
Like as a little very short tangent, for like, this is how in the dark I am a lot of times. For example, I called him one time and was like, are you an officer? And he was like, why? Because I'm like filling this thing out, and I don't know if you're like, are you an officer? I like, they said I can't just put like Marine or like USFC. Like
they need more specifics.
Are you an E whatever or an O? What, like, I don't know what E or O you are. Like, are you an E or are you an O?
Right.
And to make this worse, he was a major.
So it's not like he like just joined. This wasn't lowly second lieutenant.
To like, I was there when he commissioned all of these things, right? But like I thought everyone did that.
Right. They all take an oath, so
But like I didn't completely I knew that there's officers and enlisted. I just didn't really understand the difference.
yes.
And I do not begrudge him this. Like I don't think that I need to know everything that he does. Um People will be like, "Oh, what does your husband do?" I'm like, "Intel." And they're like, "What kind?" I'm like, "The Intel."
No,
That kind. And they're like,
that
"Yeah,
guy.
yeah, but like human or like there's another kind and there's like some sort of computer kind and there's something about like a signal or something."
Right.
I'm like, "Yep,
Some
Intel,
intel.
that kind."
Yes.
They're like, "What is his they have numbers like assigned to their jobs?" And they'll ask me that and I'm like, "Yep, I'm sure he's got numbers."
He's got number. He's got four of them.
Yep.
There were four.
And they're probably good numbers, but I don't know. And I memorize his job because like I can't, people like I have to read things to like really get it in my head. That's
Hmm.
like how I learn. And so I know his job because he works in a secret building thing, and you can't call into
Right.
those buildings, into those rooms. But you can email like their official email. So if he worked in one of those spaces, so like
Hmm.
he can call out, but like I can't call in type thing. So if I
Yes.
needed him to call me, I'd have to email him
Yes.
on his official email, and he would email me back like I'll call you in an hour, or I'll call, or like I have to step outside today to call you or whatever. And because it's on his work email, his little signature block is on there. And that is how I memorized his job. And I told him this like I don't know, like maybe like a year ago, and he was like, "Maybe I don't tell you enough."
Huh.
Because someone we were like, at like a gathering, someone was like, "Oh, what does Sam do?" And it was like, like ladies talking and men talking. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm pretty sure like he's still doing Intel, but I said like the completely wrong job.
Wrong.
Like, and he had just changed jobs.
Oh, yeah. So there's that too.
And so I said the completely wrong job. And like from across the room, Sam's like, "That's not what I do." I was like, "I haven't sent you an email, so I don't know. Okay. I haven't memorized it yet."
I love it. I love it so
So
much.
all that to say, I feel like OPSEC has never been like a big part of my life,
Or it's been
only
so
because
much part of your life that you just don't know any other.
I have like literally nothing to say, like at all. What I know is the like pieces of information he tells me. And then because I'll ask my husband, I was like, "Did you know about this thing?" And he's like, "How did you know about that?"
It was
Like,
on the
"Oh,
news, Sam.
like, well, like this person told me." And he's like, "They shouldn't have done that. They shouldn't have told you that." And then I'll go back and I'll tell them, and they're like, "It's not classified."
You can look it up. That's
He went to
funny.
SEER school, and when he came back from SEER school, I asked him about like, "Did you eat the bunny or the pig or whatever it is?" Or something. I asked, yeah, something about that. So he's like, "How did you know?" I'm like, "Google."
Right?
And he was like, "But no, but what website were you on?" It's like, Google.
Google.
I typed in USNC SEER school, enter,
And that popped up.
and like I read what popped up. So yeah, OPSEC is like not a huge part of my life, only because I don't like my life personally, only because like I don't know anything to tell.
Yes. See, I think that is a level of OPSEC though, because that just shows like OPSEC is something you have to live, which I think is kind of
Yes.
what it is. Like you don't post
Yeah.
like pictures of the kids. You're not the one that's active on a lot of social media
Yes.
other than for other like posting things. So that is still a level of OPSEC, but it's a like knowledge of I need to like not know anything. So Sam,
Yes.
you
I
keep
mean,
it. and then I don't know anything. All of that wraps in really well with my story.
Oh
Um,
yes, tell your story.
so my story actually has to do with deployment. I think it especially was big on deployments when we were talking about the early 2000s, like right after 9/11, and people were going. OPSEC was a really big thing that I think even the general populace understood and like got, because there would be a lot of like talking, and yes, people were always talking about who was deployed and who wasn't, but in general people kind of understood how important it was because people were dying. People were dying a lot, and they could die from any information, especially social media. And that is just such a huge thing that today's world kind of has forgotten. Wouldn't you say? Like, I would say a lot of people right now have kind of
Yes.
forgotten that point that like it's not just, hey, you're so cool, you get to sit in the vault. Like, no, people can literally die. It may not be our husbands. Like, it might
Yeah.
be your brother and her sister. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but so I feel like that's important, and that kind of tracks into my story, which starts with something that is actually in the news, but has a relation to us, and that is the fitness tracker app Strava. And I don't know if you use it. I don't use it, but it's basically considered like the social network for athletes. It's like Facebook for people who are doing a lot of runners and cyclists, and they can get on and brag and celebrate about their achievements where they have run and walked and ridden and show their paths and all this stuff. And um, it's used by a lot of service members, right? As a way to keep up morale and the fact that it's literally their job to stay in shape. But in November of 2017, they released what they called a heat map of one over 1 billion activities and 3 trillion GPS points. Like, I actually looked up the map, and you can look at all of this stuff. Nothing that I'm about to tell you is something that isn't available on the internet. It's actually stuff you can find on like the New York Times,
On the Google.
on the Google, yeah. And I know because I went back and Googled it just to make sure. But it released all of this stuff, and it started releasing that in November, and in January a 20-year-old like looked at it and realized that it was showing things that could potentially be bad for like military of every location. And what it was doing is it was showing the um the like walking tracks and running tracks of all of these people, including anytime it was on bases. And the bigger point of that was foreign bases. Yes, there were the known bases, but there were like the secret bases, the ones that were running like special operations or things that were like just being built and nobody knew about them yet. So all these like known bases for the US in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, like yes, some of those were known and some of them were not, and they were secret ones. And while the map itself was not an accurate map with satellite imaging, the tracking was accurate, and so all they had to do was like overlay it on top of an accurate map, and they would be able to try and figure out what is in these locations with newer satellite images. And it was showing like all of these secret spaces and compromising any of the military who happened to be there. Now, it was not banned. Here's the thing, is like none of the service members or maybe civilians who happened to be there, because this is a worldwide app who was being used by locals in all countries. They were not banned from using it on bases or going out and doing things. They may have been banned from taking them on missions. That's not something I'm going to know about, but they weren't banned in those locations. But they obviously should not have been broadcast. And it was actually such a big deal that the Pentagon got involved. And they had to go back and like determine whether or not this was something that required additional training on the service members points of like what they should and shouldn't be tracking. And in the app itself that was made sort of public, so that the heat map was made completely public. Everything else you had to be part of the app to get to. So you could see people's pictures, like if they posted a picture of themselves out in a base overseas and they were running, or they showed like the mountain range behind them, and then you can just take a picture of that mountain range and Google it and figure out exactly where they are. And those are things that maybe people hadn't really thought about at that time and became like a big problem for OPSEC across the nations, because it wasn't just us. Like there was a new base in Mali, but that the French were building, and they could see right onto that too, and to see like the helicopters like sitting there and just do all this stuff. And it was a crazy situation. And it was especially crazy for us because my husband happened to be in one of these locations. And thankfully, by the time it was really discovered, he was actually on his way out, and he wasn't like in some like location that was, banned, but it certainly wasn't something that I wanted broadcast while I had a 1-year-old at home and dad is doing super cool things. And this fitness app is like, hey, let's just start looking at the entire world here. Disregard anybody else who happens to be on there. So there was an awful lot of backtracking by everybody of figure out how to make this more safe, like enjoyable for people, but also safe for all the people who are over there, trying to protect more people and figuring out how to keep their assets covered, right? Like, for anybody who's still using it, you can in fact exclude your tracking, like whatever exercises and activities you're doing, you can have that turned off in the app so that you can't make that part public. But that was a really big deal and kind of something to really think on, because if you go look at it now, the New York Times did a big video on it. And if you go and look, and they break down like what you can see, it shows the walking path around bases. Some of them, they can take them in the buildings. Some places, like government buildings, certain agencies, they don't allow any kind of electronic, like we were talking about, inside. So you might see them walking around their parking lots getting exercise during the day, but then they don't go in the buildings. So there is a certain level of OPSEC that was already in place for some things, but obviously somebody dropped the ball on the thought of using them in other locations. So
Mm,
that was kind of a big deal. Um,
yeah.
Thankfully, I still have a husband who's alive, and my children have a dad who is able to take care of them, put them to bed, while you and I talk on here about all of the chaos that is the life that we live.
The chaos.
The chaos.
I guess the only way that it like really ever affected my life was like coming home from deployments and things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you get the like, don't tell when they're coming home because flights like day movement will get stopped. They will
Yes.
not come home. Like that is the only like real tangible way for me personally that it's ever been like affecting my life, I guess. In a way that like I can feel.
Yeah.
Because he'd say like I'm coming home and they give you these like broad like swathing dates.
Yes.
It's like I'm coming home between the 2nd of February and the 30th of March. And you're like, cool.
Sweet. Sweet.
I'll see you in February or March. And
Yeah.
as they get like closer to coming home, it gets narrowed down and narrowed down and narrowed down. And you're not, you're told in various sundry places and hopefully by your spouse, like, don't post this online. Don't tell, like, it's just
Yes.
not like public information,
Yeah.
Like you tell your parents and you tell their parents and like whatever, whoever your
But
neighbors probably know if you're living on base, but it's
right.
just not like,
But even then, like if you're telling your parents, there are ways in which we are told
yes,
these dates or times
yeah,
that is never straightforward. Like we are not told, and I'm not going to tell everybody the formulas or the ways in which this is done. Sorry, that's part of OPSEC.
tell no one. I'm like, okay,
Okay.
but like that's 1 a.m. Can I tell a babysitter?
Right. Can I
Or
get
like,
somebody to
do
like,
I just make the neighbors like really suspicious that I've asked for a babysitter in like the dead of night? Like,
uh,
hey, could I have a baby? Could anyone is anyone able to babysit from like 11 p.m. to like 3 or 4 a.m.?
right.
Reason unknown.
I mean, but if you did that around military, they would all figure out.
Yeah.
They would have two guesses. One, either you've got an upside down pineapple in the front of your door, or your husband's coming home.
Right? But
Like,
like I was always like, but I can tell the babysitter, right? Like
yeah.
because and like Sam has literally like you know all those beautiful homecoming pictures that
Yes.
everybody gets? Okay. My husband has never come home in the light of day. Never.
Wyatt has done it once.
Not even once has he come home in waking hours. Like he got real close once.
Yeah.
He came home at, and I did take the kids to this one. He came home, his flight landed at 11:30
Okay.
p.m.
Okay.
Okay, so I was like, it's gonna be a hard day tomorrow,
Yes.
but it's all right. Like we can handle that one. But like other times it was like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And I'm
And,
like, you have got to be kidding.
and then
Like
they
this
push
is
it
crazy.
and like, yeah. Yeah.
So I did not bring the children.
I don't blame you.
But that is the only way that OPSEC has like really truly like affected my life in like my life personally.
Personally. Yeah.
Otherwise it's I kind of live in this bubble of like
I
I don't want to know
choose,
what's going
yeah,
on. I have no secrets to tell.
yeah, I choose
Don't
now.
come for me,
Oh no,
spies.
right?
I know
Well,
nothing. I
so
really don't know anything.
that's the thing is that all three of our spouses are in, I mean, military in general, are all having access to something. Then their clearances allow them access or less access, right? Accordingly. All three of our spouses have done or are currently doing things in which they work in what we call the vault, which is what Amelia was talking about, where phones are not allowed, Bluetooth devices in general are not allowed, like the original Fitbits. You couldn't even take in the original Fitbits that all it did was showed you dots. Those were not allowed. Um, like these things are not okay. I also do the email thing. Even when I was like massively pregnant with Lexi, the closest I could get to getting a hold of Wyatt was to call the duty, and we were in Maryland in a location, and he was not with the Marine Corps at the time. He was with a joint task force, and I could call the duty for the building, which is larger than any of the other buildings on any Marine base that we've ever been to by a lot. And what they would do would be to flag his ID. They could also not just track him down. So if then the only way to know for him to know that I need him to get a hold of me if he didn't check his email was for him to leave the building and try to get back into any other building that he had to scan his ID. And then it would pop up with a big red alert that it had been flagged with a note attached to it. You need to call your wife. That is how, like, the chaos that was 2015 and me, like, trying to manage being pregnant and dealing with a husband who was not, I couldn't get a hold of him. It wasn't a possibility. I couldn't even call the duty and they'd be like, oh, yeah, we'll just like walk over there. No, we had to flag him and just hope he left the building because there was no other way of getting a hold of him otherwise. Like, our spouses are special. And not in the you need to come track us down way, people. That's more of like, aren't you special? But
Yeah,
aren't
yeah.
you
It's
special?
and I I really desperately like desire for these secret spaces. And I want people to lie to me and just tell me that this is how it is because of how much time my spouse spends in there and how difficult he is to like track down when he's
Right?
in there. I want it to be like Jason Bourne, right? Like I want the like screens to like pop out of desks. I want there to be like hologram maps that they can like not Terminator. What's that guy? I don't do those Marvel movies. What's
I,
the guy?
oh,
In the
Tony Stark. Tony Stark.
Yes.
Iron Man.
I want it to be like grab the things, the hologram
Yeah.
images, and like, and put like because of the amount of time spent in these like super secret spaces that no one can know anything about. It's that cool, right?
Right.
And everyone needs to lie to me and just be like, yes,
I will actually not lie to you on this
it is that cool.
and tell you that I have over the course of our time in the Marine Corps, we had a family day, right? So you had to be like approved to come in, but we did in fact get to go into one of these super secret rooms that was designed by a very popular animated film company of all the things. And it was in fact like that. Like for the most part, it wasn't maybe like Tony Stark grab it out of the air kind of thing, but it was one of those rooms where I was like, fine, if you have to be stuck in here, at least you look cool while being stuck in here because it was like that. So it's not a lie. At least some of them are that cool.
No, Sam tells me that they're all really boring, and then also don't come for our spouses
Oh yeah,
because
don't.
it's like secrets. Are they any good? And he's like, not really.
Not really. No, not really.
Then why is it a secret?
I know, right? Then why? You know what? In years, we'll find out why it was a secret because then the statute of limitations will be lifted and we can go back and like Google it. It'll be on Google and we can
It'll be on Google.
and Sam will be like, "How did you know?" Google.
Google.
Tap 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 tap
Like
tap.
always, like everything,
Yes,
Google.
Google.
And like when this topic was suggested, I was like, I'm so ignorant. I am OPSEC. I am the picture of OPSEC. They should put my face on a poster. I'm so good at this.
Right? She's got this. No problem.
Got this. And like the only not story I have is living here in Okinawa, like Kadena Air Force Base, right? Obviously, like airplanes,
Yes.
Air Force airplanes.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
And when we first got here, and they're still here. These people they stand like literally right outside the gate because the planes, like the flight path that the military planes take, is they like come approach from the East China Sea and then they go down. The Air Force Base like kind of cuts the island like this. If the island goes north to south, it kind of cuts it in half like this.
Right.
It goes east to west, west to east, whatever. And there are all these people like taking pictures, massive, big, huge cameras, huge. And one day we were driving and I asked my husband, and it was like, well, like why are they even doing that? Like they're here every day.
Yeah.
Because at this point, I think it'd been like a year or two that we've been here, and I was just like at this point like annoyed by the planes. Like they weren't like cool and fun anymore. I was like, they're very loud.
Yes. And
They
they
rattle
mess
my
up
walls.
they mess up your internet.
They mess up my internet. What are they doing? Like what are they? And he's like, oh, they're spies. Like what? We're just not gonna do anything about that?
Right?
They're just gonna
be
and
there.
he's like, nope, we can't do anything because they're on Japanese soil. And like there's all these rules and stuff of like what you can and can't do and blah 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 blah. I'm not even gonna pretend like I understand it all, or I'm not gonna try to explain it.
Yeah.
But every day I see spies. Every day of my life. That there's like flights going on, and they're pretty much flying every day. And there they are with their giant cameras taking pictures of the planes. And they call themselves our friend that is a pilot was like, oh yeah, we know about him. Everybody knows about him. They call themselves aviation enthusiasts, and we can't prove that they're not. So,
I mean, I guess there's that. But man, their lenses are ginormous.
They're huge.
They are big, like big enough that they need tripods to hold up their lenses if they don't.
Yes.
Yeah, like I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. And it always makes me kind of giggle in ironically sad way because there's a freaking parking lot right there. Like it's basically a highway. And there's just this turnoff thing. Like it was made just for this purpose.
It was a bus stop.
Right. But it's like
It's
there's
very
like a
conveniently
yeah,
located.
because there's like a protective barrier too. Like they can pull over.
Yes.
Most of the other bus stops and things, they're just like they pull over, but it's just a shoulder essentially. This one is not. It's like a little area that has a protection from the cars who are like zooming by. Yeah, I'm sure that's exactly what it was intended for. This is no, no, no. I'm pretty sure that one of those enthusiasts was part of the engineering crew who decided to determine how this road was going to be built in that specific location. That's just my theory. Bring it on.
I mean, I love a good conspiracy theory,
Right?
but also, as I was saying like earlier, just feel like it's not that deep. Like a lot of things, and maybe it is, and it's like me and my ignorance. Because also, I feel like being kept like jaded like this, I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, or being kept like in the dark, I'm kind of jaded. I'm like, it's not that big. It's not big of a deal, guys.
Right? Like whatever.
Whatever, it doesn't matter. It's probably not even that big of a deal. It's not that deep.
It's not that
Maybe
deep.
it is.
I mean, I wouldn't think that that would be though, because it's not like they're flying over public spaces, right? It's not like it's at the north end of the island where they're coming in straight off the water and nobody can get under the airplanes. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
to see it. Anybody could do this. They could get on top of the houses that are probably like a a half a kilometer away and take pictures from there too that are just as good.
Yes.
So that's what I always find kind of interesting is they're out there every day. I'm like, what are you learning every day that doesn't probably change all that often? Like, why are we
So
doing this every
one of
single
our
day?
pilot friends was like, oh, they're like getting pictures of tail numbers and stuff like that. Okay. Something I learned being out here and like befriending pilot people, because there's
Mm-hmm.
pilots everywhere. Um, Military aircraft have like their names on their planes, right?
Right.
They very seldomly fly in the aircraft with their name on it
Mm,
because like planes break and
right.
things like that.
But they need their
And
hours.
yeah, and like there's not like I thought every pilot has a plane, and that's not true.
Right.
And I figured this out. I mean, I didn't figure it out. I was told this because I asked one of our pilot friends something. She's literally like the coolest person in my life. She's so cool. She flies helicopters
I would
and
resent
like,
that, but I don't fly helicopters, so it's fine.
well, she flies like pararescue
Oh yeah,
helicopters.
no, even better. Yep.
Like,
I,
she's
I will
literally
bow
the
to
coolest
her.
person. Yes. And like, like snowboards and like extreme. She's so cool. Cool. She's just cool. And I said something, oh, because we went to a ball and it just so happened that like her helicopter was the static display, like the helicopter with her
Oh,
name on it.
yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's so cool. But like, what were you flying? Because she was flying that day. And she was like, oh, I thought my helicopter was still in Guam. And I was like, did
She didn't even know
you
it was
leave
there.
it there? Like, I didn't realize you could misplace a helicopter.
Yeah.
I'm really confused. And she's like, oh, I think I've only flown like the helicopter with my name on it like once, maybe twice.
Mm.
So what do you, but you fly all the time. What are you flying? She was like, just like whatever's available. So why do you put your name on it?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then one of the other pilots was like, I really don't know anymore.
Right?
I've never flown my plane that has my name on it. So I guess like, okay, so all that to say, when they're taking these pictures, it's like tail numbers, but it doesn't matter whose name is written on it. And this is not a secret, guys. I'm not
Right.
telling secrets because that pilot might not be in the plane.
In the plane. Ever.
So
Potentially
I
ever.
was asking them about like, oh, so like patterns, right? Like what tail numbers are flying. And then our friend was like, yeah, because, I guess they'll just know which planes are broken.
That's a good point. There's that.
I was like, and we're okay with them knowing that? And they were like, yeah.
I mean, I guess to a point you did tell a secret that Top Gun and Maverick is a lie. It's a lie.
It is a
Because
lie.
it's a lie. I mean, because they're not just like taking them with them wherever they go. No, that's not how that works. Yeah.
I really thought it was. Like,
Well,
I thought, in my ignorance, obviously planes need fuel and have limits to how far they can fly. So, like, a small, not that military helicopters are small, but like one of the smaller helicopters across the ocean, obviously not going to fly across the ocean, right?
right.
So, in my head, and I believed this for far too long, I'm not going to tell you how long, but it was a long, long, long time,
Okay.
right? You get out of flight school, you get a plane or a helicopter or whatever like aircraft
Designated. Yeah.
you've been assigned to. They put your name on it. That's your plane. And it follows you wherever you go.
Wherever you go.
Like you move it. When you PCS with your plane or your helicopter. And like in my head, this made so much sense, right? Like obviously that's your plane. You would move it.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely had a
You're in
period.
a place where you're gonna fly the same plane. Why would you go to a new base and fly a different plane? Like the same airframe,
Right.
a C-17. You're a C-17 pilot. Wouldn't you take your C-17 to the new base and whoever you're replacing takes their C-17?
To the new.
Apparently not.
No,
That's not how it works.
it's not.
And I really hope this was my husband because I don't have a very good memory of this conversation. It's like a very vague. I hope it was with my husband and not with like someone else. And I didn't like completely embarrass myself because how I figured out that this doesn't happen was I was like, well, but I mean, they would have to get that. I said something about like, I just don't understand why they don't put like our stuff, like our personal items when we move, right, on Navy ships and just move them because they're moving the people's helicopters anyways. And Sam was like, or if it wasn't Sam, whoever this person was, I
Right.
really hope it was Sam, but I don't know who it was like, what? Because they have to move the planes and the helicopters.
Right. Duh.
And they were like, what? It's like, like when you PCS, like especially the pilots that fly like these giant airplanes, why don't they just put their household goods in their airplanes to
Right.
fly them?
And just take it. It makes sense.
Obviously.
Spoiler alert to all you people out there. That's not what
Spoiler
happens.
alert.
Not how it works.
Not how that works.
Or at least not how it works when you're not in wartime. When you're in wartime, things actually do get moved across because, we don't just have like planes and helicopters in countries that we don't know we're going to war with. Like, that's not how that works. But yeah. No. And I
all
really
that to say,
I didn't know that either for a long time.
I'm an idiot.
You're not an idiot. But that's not one of those things they explain to
hope
us.
that was Sam.
We're just going to assume it was Sam.
I'm gonna assume it was Sam.
I mean, it's not something that they explain to us, like at any point, right? Like they don't share this across the board, people. It's not how, and they certainly aren't going to tell us because OPSEC. Yeah. So that's kind of fun because it actually brings me into our like hacks a little bit. And part of mine actually comes from this new book right here. Do you see this, Amelia?
Yes, I love it.
The Secrets and Lies of Military Wives, and it's written by Jenna Lum, and who is a military spouse. And for those who can't see this, there is what we lovingly hate and lovingly say, a dependopotamus on the front of it, which is a hippopotamus who is a dependent, and so we're called dependopotamuses. And in both positive and negative, many a negative. This book is very much filled with the negative, but there's all kinds of stories, and we'll get to that at another point. But shout out to Jenna. Thank you for all the entertainment that has come to this and the stories that were sent to you. But I'm going to jump down into my our tips. We're going to do some tips for maintaining OPSEC. And one of mine is with children. One of the hardest things to do with OPSEC is not just like keeping your kids off social media, like their faces, their names, their birth dates, not letting people know exactly that kind of information, but like sharing situations with your kids so that they know what mom or dad does, but also knowing that a 6-year-old or a 3-year-old or an 11-year-old is going to go out and tell somebody what mom and dad does because they just don't understand what it can mean, right? Like what the real like danger is in telling people this information. And so there's a funny little story in the middle of this book where she gives some stuff about military kids. And being month of the military child, I felt that my tips for maintaining upset needed to be child related. So I'm going to read you a short part of this because I think that it is an excellent way of showing how someone used OPSEC for their kids. So this is talking about military kids, and it says, take Mikey, a 5-year-old who recently attended his dad's reenlistment ceremony. Anybody who doesn't know, enlistment means you are not an officer, Amelia. While everyone else stood tall and solemn, Mikey turned to his mom, face very serious, and asked, does this mean Daddy has to go back to the desert and play hide and seek again? You could practically hear the crowd biting back their laughter while Dad tried to keep his composure. Honestly, Mikey, you nailed it. Like, it's one of those things of trying to describe a deployment to a kid and telling them where they are and what they're doing. And it's like, one, there's not really a point in telling a 5-year-old the country that daddy's in because they're not going to know what it is. And if they go around telling somebody, there could be somebody like Lacey's situation where some random dude who's trying to get like information out of you and your kid walks up and says, my daddy's in Afghanistan. Like, that's not really safe. And then you're dealing with, okay, well, daddy's in the desert. What's daddy doing there? Well, he's trying to find people, but he's also trying to hide from people. He's playing hide and seek. It's a little bit
There
more
you go.
dangerous than that, but it's fun ways of playing OPSEC. Like there's so many other stories in here, but I came across that one today and I thought it was a really good like example of OPSEC on a kid's level. You change it up to whatever that kid's like understanding is, and just do your best to try to mitigate what they can know and will understand and what it is that they're actually going to tell everybody else. Because just like us adults, kids are going to slip now and then, or they're going to get upset and they're going to, spout off to their friends because they're trying to defend their parent for not being here for their dance recital and say something that they shouldn't have said. So if you just figure out what will work best, it can bring smiles to everybody at different points in lifetime. It works out well.
I always err on the side of caution. Like if my husband's told me something, I have just kind of learned over the years to be like, is this a sharing thing or is this a not sharing thing?
Yeah.
And I mean, like with the kids, we told Sam where he was going, but it was only after I was like, hey, can we tell the kids where you're going? And
Right.
Josh was so young for most of it. And it was really funny because he got like some of the countries so wrong. Like he was learning continents at the time,
Mm-hmm.
So one time it was like, my daddy's fighting bad guys in Oceania. Oceania. He's learning continents. His father's also not in Australia. He's definitely in Iraq. But I was like, no, I'm gonna let him have it. Let him figure it out.
Yep. It's fine.
It's fine.
This
He's fighting mermen in Oceania. That's fine.
Atlantis.
Atlantis. And one time he was like, my dad is having he's in the desert. He like
Couldn't figure
and it would
out which
take him
one.
so long to get the like right one. He'd like desert. Desert. There's lots of sand.
There you go. That's all you gotta know.
Here's my tip. If it's not in his signature block for his email, don't talk about it.
That is an excellent tip. Yes, that is perfect. Just ask them to send you an email from their work email, like updated, and whatever that says, don't say anything beyond that. That's all you need to know for that part. Yeah, no, that is like perfect. I love that.
Tips for maintaining OPSEC. Don't talk to strangers, keep it to yourself. And that includes baby arrival dates. And that's just a general parenting one because let me tell you, after 6 kids and pretty much all of them late, it's way more fun to say they're due later in the month or early in the month or, in this month, and then tell them when you're in labor or when you're at the hospital or whatever works for you. But trust me, it gets real old when people text you all the time asking if you've had the baby or if there are any signs. But in honor of Month of the Military Child, kind of piggybacking on our OPSEC story, you guys may have noticed when we post pictures of our children, we blur out their faces, we put a sticker over it. We put a sticker over it, and that is to keep their faces off of the interwebs. We try not to share their pictures just to keep them safe because, especially in today's day and age where the internet is vast and massive, you never know what can happen, especially with AI.
Baby arrival dates, stuff like that. But birthdays in general, like I still want to be excited for people's birthdays and like shout them out. But I always make a point of, unless they make it public, like I'll wait a couple of days, or even with my own kids, like I'll wait a couple of days to like do anything or longer, right? Like to kind of throw things off, still acknowledge it, but without giving like an exact date of today on this day at this time, blah happened,
Smart.
whatever that is. And that goes for like moves too.
Yeah.
That's an area that some people don't think much about, but depending on where you're moving, traveling, anything like that, like we also will tell people where we're going and then we don't tell them when we're leaving because one,
See, I have 2
that could
dancers. We just
change.
don't travel.
Well, that's true. That's a good point. I mean, you travel, but you travel for dance. So that's totally different.
Exactly. And we have such a big family that somebody's almost always home because we do not leave the state when dancing pretty much.
Okay, so this one, with the month of military child, story with military child. So military kids are also masters at adaptation. They can pack their lives into a moving box faster than most adults can pack their suitcases. Little Ellie, age 6, recently informed her teacher that her family doesn't live anywhere. They just borrow houses until it's someone else's turn.
That's perfect.
Yes, when asked if that made her sad, she shrugged. Not really. We always get new neighbors to spy on.
Oh, that's awesome.
I love
Clearly
kids.
used to living on base.
Yes.
Yeah, I love
Or
it.
just like close-knit neighborhoods, like whatever, right on top of each other. Oh, I thought that one was great. I was like,
That's adorable.
yes, this is a military kid who's learning early in life. Age 6, she's got this down. Thank you for listening today as we kick off season 2 military segment. We'd love for you to join in the conversation and share your stories with us on Instagram and Facebook, or the ones you know about. Make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode, and share it with all of your friends. If you're a military spouse passing time with reading and you should check out our last episode where we discussed our fellow military spouse Rebecca Yaros's second installment of the Empyrean series, Iron Flame. Bye!
Bye.